from Homestead Corner, and today I thought I'd bring you along while I canned my very favorite soup for the pantry. I love beef stew. Home canned beef stew or freshly homemade beef stew are my absolute favorite. And the canned beef stew, when you can it yourself, it tastes like you just made it. It is so good. So I just have a few basic ingredients that I use in this. I've got a couple of roasts that I picked up a few weeks ago and tossed in the freezer while they were on sale. And today I have time to get this done, so I'm going to put just a little bit of garlic in there, a couple of onions, carrots, celery, potatoes. I've got some dried mushrooms I'm going to stick a few in, and I've got onion stock and vegetable stock, and I'm doing like a 3-to-1, mostly vegetable stock with 1 jar of onion. These are so good and they're mixed together really nicely. I love the onion stock and the veggie stock, so we're going to just mix these up in a pot and lightly warm them. So I will go ahead and get started, and we're going to cut this meat up. Okay, so I am just using a boneless shoulder pot roast. These were on sale. Honestly, it doesn't matter how cheap the meat is. It's going to come out fabulous in this because it's all pressure canned in the soup, and it is just, the meat is always so tender no matter what you use. So, and I normally wouldn't buy something this expensive for, oh my goodness, I wouldn't buy something this expensive for soup, but it was just such a great deal on sale that this is what I grabbed. So I'm just cutting these up in like bite size, up to 1 inch, about like that, 3/4 of an inch squares, I guess. Just that size. I like to have them so you can just pop them right in your mouth while you're eating the soup. And we're just putting them right in a bowl, and we're just going to keep cutting these right up. Okay, so I've got about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil in here, and I'm just heating up my pan nice and hot, and I'm going to put my meat right in there, and we're just going to sear it real quick, brown the outside. We're not going to cook it all the way through. We're just going to brown the outside so it holds all the flavor in, and it is going to keep the right texture of the meat. If you just pack it in raw, it is going to get it's gonna shred when you touch it. So I like to brown this just a little bit before we put it in the jars. Okay, so we've got our meat all browned up, but it's not cooked inside. And with the magic of video, we have all of our vegetables cut up. So we're just going to start layering in our jars all of our ingredients. I'm going to start with potatoes and put a decent layer on the bottom of potatoes. And these wide mouth jars are easy to fill without the funnel, so we'll just skip that little baby. I like a nice little layer of potatoes in there, my beef stew. I got one random purple jar here, so if you're wondering why that's a different color, I went and I was short one clear jar, so we're going to use it, and it's beautiful. So I'm just doing 14 quarts of soup today, so I'm going to break everything up evenly across all the quarts and try to make them as even as possible for what I have for ingredients. And then we will have some fabulous soup. This is my favorite on a cold winter day, sitting by the fire with a nice big cup of soup. And this is, I'm going to can this really thin with just the broth, but when I cook this, when I heat it up to eat it, that is when I thicken the broth to make it a stew. So you could thicken this before, but I like to do it right when I'm heating it up because there's plenty of time to do it then. So we've got our potatoes in there, and now I'm just going to put some carrots in each jar. So we got a little bit of carrots in there. I love fresh carrots. I don't have as many as I would like. I thought I had more in the left, but this is the end of my fresh carrots. Everything else is canned. So we'll get those in there. Alright, so, and then I'm going to add a few dehydrated mushrooms. I'm just going to put a couple in each one because these are going to bulk up a little bit while this is canning, and it will absorb some of the water and they'll get a little bit bigger. So I'm only going to put a few in each one. Just a little bit. Oh, probably about that much. You really don't need a lot because these are going to bulk up. But that will just, I love mushrooms. I love them in everything. Just throw a little pinch in each one. And that will be delicious. You could use fresh mushrooms, that totally works also. But I don't have any fresh mushrooms on hand at the moment. And this is really good when you heat it up. You could add some barley or rice with it, or some dumplings in there. Oh my goodness. There's just so much you can do with this, and it's quick and easy, and it's great if there's no power. You can just pop it right on the wood stove. Let's see, throw that in there. How are we looking? We could use a couple more. Ooh. Toss them right in there, huh? It's really the vegetables that you like. You don't want to put a bunch of stuff in there you don't like. So let's say you don't like celery, don't add celery. Or if you don't like the mushrooms, don't add mushrooms. I love vegetables. They're so tasty. So we're just trying to get the celery in there evenly. I love the little zippy taste celery gives soups. It's so nice. I'm not putting a lot of seasoning in here because these broths have so much in them and they are so tasty. So I'm just going to put a teeny bit of salt in these actually when we get to it. And there is my celery. And we're going to toss in some onions. Can't have too many onions. And there, if you're not feeling well, onions are so good for you. If you're sick, there's so many good vitamins and minerals in there. They're great for decongestion, which is nice. So this makes a nice pick-me-up for if you're not feeling well also. But I'll tell you, this goes fast in our house. This is one of our favorite soups on the shelf. Alright, and then we're just going to add our meat in here and we will be done. So let me see. Oh, I don't have a scoop clean. So we're just going to start loading the meat in. Try to get a handful in each one. These are fairly small pieces. You might have to cut a couple of them, but And these will finish cooking while they're in the canner, because this is going to be in the canner for 90 minutes because there's meat in it. And again, you could do this raw, but the meat all sticks together in a big clump if you do that. So I like to just brown it up. That's why I did that, just so it stays in its own little chunks and it doesn't get too stuck together. More in there. I'm looking back here. Fill these puppies up. And I don't cut too much of the fat off when I'm cutting up my meat. I try to leave most of it on because that is where all your flavor is. Oh my goodness, it's so delicious. There, that looks like that will do it. Set this over here, rinse my hands again. Oh my goodness. You always want to have clean hands while you're doing this. Definitely, definitely. So then I'm just going to put, because I don't put salt in my broth, I'm going to put a ½ teaspoon in each one of these pints. I don't salt my broth when I make it because it is, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. So I just don't bother with it, and then I salt it with whatever I'm using it for. And because that broth at the store is just way too salty for me. I don't love that. I mean, it's really handy, but it is so salty that it's just not my thing. There, a little bit of salt. And then we're just going to load these up with some broth. And I have a mixture of 3-to-1 vegetable broth, vegetable stock, and onion stock. So it's just 3 jars of vegetable broth, 3 jars of onion stock. And oh man, these are so good. You can use the store-bought ones, but I wouldn't add the salt if you're not a big salt fan. And you can use any kind of broth you like on this, which is nice. If you have a nice beef broth, that's great. Or a vegetable, onion, any kind of broth, really. Whatever it is you like. Add your favorites. Okay, and we're leaving 1-inch headspace. We're just bringing right up to this rim right here, where that last bubble out on the rim. And that way we have plenty of room. And oh, this already looks so good and it smells so good. Okay, so we got all our jars filled, and I'm just using a wooden skewer, and I'm just going to move things around and debubble these. Make sure there's no big air bubbles. And if there are, and I need to add more of the broth, I can do that. But these are, oh, these look so good. They're full of goodness. I'll start moving stuff around. The veggies float for now. Oh, these are so good. You definitely want to make sure that you debubble, because you don't want to leave any extra air in there that you don't need. And you can use anything for a debubbler, really. I just have this little wooden skewer, whatever you can move it around with. And then I'm going to wipe my jars with, I've just got a little vinegar here, nothing fancy, but where this has meats in it, so you want to make sure you get that fat off. So I like to use vinegar any time that I'm using meat or anything with any fat or anything greasy at all, because if you have anything on these rims, you could get a bad seal and it won't seal. You don't want to lose all this hard work. If you do get 1 or 2 jars that don't seal, toss them in the fridge, because you can eat them right away. They just can't go in the pantry. They're not bad if they don't seal. You just have to eat them right away. Eat them up within a week and you will be fine. But I just like to make sure they're clean and then I don't have to worry. And I've already washed up all my seals, so they are ready to go. And none of this is hot because we're starting with a cold canner, so everything is just at room temperature. And none of this is boiling hot. If you were starting with a hot canner, you want hot everything. Hot jars, lids, food, everything needs to be hot. But we're not doing that. So we're just going to get our rings on and we're going to pop these in the canner. And once we come up to pressure, once we vent for 10 minutes and then come up to 10 pounds of pressure, I'm going to can these for 90 minutes. And I will bring you back when they're done. Okay, so we have all 14 quarts out of the canner and everything has sealed. And you can just check your tops by touching them. They'll ping, they'll pop if they're not sealed right. But I just wanted to show you real quick. It's really important after you get everything canned up to wash them. You could, I don't know if you can see this, but there is like some grease and stuff here. So I just use a little bit of vinegar and water. And these jars were sterilized and cleaned and ready for the canner before they went in. And just wiping down the top of your jars, you can see how much junk gets on there. So it's really important after you're all done canning, before you put them away and label them, to just clean up the jars. And I use vinegar and water because that helps grab all that grease and gunk. But that is it. And we will just finish washing all these up, get them labeled, and off to the pantry they go. Except for one jar. Oh, I'm having that for lunch today. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.